the angelfish. Mom decided that she was going to do her Chinese brush painting, and she did the angelfish in the Chinese brush painting. Then she covered it with plastic. And then she did watercolors. She mixed up watercolors and splashed them all over the canvas. And the little black lines that you see, or the black and blue grayish lines that are there, she put drops of ink on the painting and then banged it on the ground. And wherever it went all on its own. Then after that, she peeled the plastic off of the fish so that because it went over, some parts went over the fish, and that was the end result. So that was a mixture of Chinese brush painting and watercolor and what else would you call it? Just banging and banging like that to make the black lines. So wherever the black lines went, they were free to fall.
Yeah.
And that's the end of that one. Siamese fighting fish, we actually breeded them ourselves. Watched them mate, watched them birth, and Mom loved her Siamese fighting fish. She had Siamese fighting fish she would put her hand in the water and he would go in and out and in and out and in and out and in and out of her fingers. But when they mate and they're finished mating, he makes a bubble nest, and he comes up and he wraps around her and squeezes her, and the eggs fall out, and he puts them into this bubble nest. When he's finished, he's going to kill her. So we had set a trap down in the bottom so that when he was finished, she went into the trap, and we pulled the thing, and the gate came down so he couldn't get at her, and then we took her out and put her in another dish. So these were our famous fish.
Yeah.
And so Mom did that. And we have that, our toothpaste holder in the bathroom has exactly the same painting on it. Not exactly the same.
Toothbrush holder.
A toothbrush holder, yeah. Called View from the Kitchen Window. And it was from our log cabin when we moved in. And Mom worked especially hard on this one because it was supposed to represent like fog. As you walk towards the painting from a distance, different trees appear. This tree appears first, and then that tree appears later, and then there's another tree here that barely can see. And as you walk closer to the painting, it shows up. But that was out of our kitchen window, and I took the photograph, and then Mom painted it from there. So that was called View from the Kitchen Window. This one here that we call Tofino is actually from the Wickaninnish Inn. When you walked into the front door of the Wickaninnish Inn and sat at your table, they had a balcony on the south side, and if you walked out onto the balcony of the Wickaninnish Inn, this is exactly what you would see. And Mom did it with only 2 colors. There's only 2 colors in this. She started with the blue, and as she line bled the blue up into the darkness here, then she stopped. Then she came down here and she went this way, down to there. And she came back here and went here, and then she came back here and went here to create the different textures. And it's all done with 2 colors. Right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. This here was somebody's award-winning photograph that they took. And I didn't want to plagiarize it, but I did. But I added the reeds, so it's something different. And I made a mistake, and I started off with a mistake, because you know when you're out in the morning and the fog is there, and you're out in the water, you can see where the water stops and the fog takes in, and it's very, very, very subtle thing. So I started off making a mistake, and I made it was too white. So rather than start over again, I thought, well, I'll just paint over top of it, and it created a horizon. So you can actually see the horizon from where the fog comes into the water, and create that. And then I wanted to make it a little different, so I put the grass reeds in there. That's my Taiwanese fisherman. Scotch Pond, Steveston, my favorite place. I photographed this. If I photographed it once, I photographed it 1,000 times, because every time I went for a walk on the dike, I photographed it from every angle possible, and I photographed it in storms, in sunsets, in sunrises, freezing with snow. And so this became my favorite. This was one of my favorite places to shoot. So when I was learning to do the line bleeding, that's the one that I chose to do. And very happy with the results of that. It worked out really fine. Moved to Hope, and Mom ended up working in Abbotsford. And right up the top of the hill on Hurling Island is where you'll see this exact scene. She called it her morning journey, because she was on her way to Abbotsford to work. And at the top of the Hurling Hill, as it goes down the hill, it goes into the darkness, and then comes up with the big mountain on the top. And what was the name of the mountain? Cheam, Mount Cheam. So this is the back of Mount Cheam. And normally you see it from Chilliwack because it stands out, but this is the backside of Mount Cheam, and this is all of the stuff around it. And so that was Mom's morning journey. we were in Qualicum at the Dutch Inn, and we were with the Workmen's Compensation Board group, and we decided that we were going to go for a walk on the beach in the morning. And I came out and went down to the beach, and there was this scene, the fishing boat, the seagull, the islands, and I said it became my purple period. My teacher wanted me to do something different, and he was a little angry at me, but I was quite happy with the way it led in, and so it ended up that way. But that was our morning walk on the beach at Qualicum, just from the old Dutch Inn. Cheers.
Cheers.
Yeah, here's to us.
Here's to us. Oh my God, this one. This is right out of Mom's head. This is right out of Mom's head. This is the returning of the sockeye salmon. Climbing up, you can see the waterfall, and you can see some of the rocks and the water falling, and they're jumping up to go back to spawn. And this is all out of her head. She just did it.
Coming home.
And she calls it coming home because they're coming home to lay their eggs, and they're fighting. And this is the color of the leaves because it's in the fall, and this is the tree coming over the top of the waterfall, and you can see some of the rocks there and everything like that. And this is the salmon working their way back, and it's an awesome shot. But it's right. Everything is right out of her head. There's no photograph to take this. This is just plain and simple Marlene's artwork at its best, actually. This is funny. This is a funny story. We had a hard winter and we had lots of snow, but in the spring the snow had cleared and the sun came out. We decided, well, let's go up to Coquihalla and take some pictures of the first day of spring. And this is the first day of spring. The only trouble is we're driving up the Coquihalla. There's 50 feet of snow on either side of the highway, and there's absolutely nothing to see. So we pulled in at Blocks Canyon, because that was the only little cutaway off the highway, and we climbed up the ice, and actually I fell down the other side with my camera in my hand, and we took these pictures. And so Mom painted the sunlight coming through the trees, and that was supposed to be the first day of spring. So it was funny, but it worked out. I mean. Toba Mori, I saw, I don't know where I saw a picture, but we were doing miniatures. And I did a line bleed. On here. And I saw this beautiful picture, and I thought it reminded me a lot of Nova Scotia. And I thought, well, I'd paint it. Well, I painted this thing with a little 3-haired brush or something, because it was all miniature. It was painstakingly long time to do, but now it looks like now if you on the internet and Google Toba Mori, you'll see my painting in real life. And it's a little island of Mull, just as we're just in the north where it leads into the North Sea. Oh, this one. Christmas moon, or they danced by the light of the moon. Christmas moon. We had so many titles for this, we didn't know what to call it, because Mom looked and the trees were like ballerinas, so she first came up with it, they danced by the light of the moon. And then we realized that this was the full moon on Christmas Eve, and this is the year 2000 when this was taken. And it will appear again in the year 2025. The same picture will appear. And this is taken from the porch of the log cabin on Othello Road. So then we had the Dance by the Light of the Moon, and then we had the Christmas moon, and I guess that's where it ended up. It ended up to be Christmas moon. And the snow that's on there is beautiful. Marlene put white paint on a toothbrush and ran her thumb across it, and I was hanging on to it. And so she got the snow all on there, and it was really beautiful. But then when we took the picture away from me, I was covered in snow. But you could see exactly where the painting was. So we had a lot of fun with this one. This one here was a picture of a totem pole, but it was in a 1958 centennial book. It had this picture of this totem pole, and at the time, the centennial was 1958, and at the time they were saying that this was a 100-year-old totem and that it was rotting and going back to the earth. And that's what Marlene called her painting.
Back to the forest.
She called it Back to the Forest, as it was rotting back to the forest, probably not to be found now. And it's a different line blade. She's line blade from the center out, from the center out, from the center out, and then did the moss, because the trees up in Haida Gwaii are which we call the Queen Charlotte Islands, is now Haida Gwaii. And that's the moss on the trees, and it's actually very, very neat painting. I like this one. This one hangs in somebody's house in Sweden, so it's made it around. Okay, now we get this one here. My grandfather took pictures. He took lots of pictures of Vancouver. And this is one of a Russian wheat ship that he took off of Point Grey, just by Locarno Beach there. And it's a Russian wheat ship sitting in the harbor waiting for its turn to go and load up. And this was a photograph that was taken in 1913. Me being an old Navy soul who loved ships and sailing, I always had this fascination with boats, as you saw previously with my Scotch Pond. Yeah, This one here, even an engineer said I got the rigging right. But I just had to do it, and it was all done in black and white. But people were doing black and whites, and they were always putting a little color in, and I thought that I just would put the color in on the Russian flag so that you could recognize where the ship was from. And if you look over here on the side there, if you go there today, that's a Walter Gage tower built at UBC, and it's exactly looks the same today. It's got a few more buildings beside it, but that same shape is still there today. So that's interesting. We went to Japan, and we got all this handmade paper. It was absolutely gorgeous, very, very expensive paper. And we had this paper that looked like a rainbow. So Marlene started painting, and she painted something there. Then she painted this barn on another piece of paper. And so we cut that out and laminated it onto here, and then she put the fence in and everything. And then after that, we took that special paper that you could see through, and we laminated it over top of the whole painting. And that's how that one was formed. So it was a collage, I guess, in one way. And a mixed, and talk about mixed media. It had everything in it, but the kitchen sink. Or maybe the kitchen sink, no.
Probably used Chinese brush paint.
Yeah, Chinese brush paint. With our Workmen's Compensation Board group, we went to Salt Spring Island, and we did the marketplace. And just from the marketplace, if you just went onto the highway to the east, there was this little old farm. So we got out to check out the farm, and it was over 100 years old. It had been there. It was just a settlement at one time, and it was vacant. And we did a walkway. And we're heading down, and as you can see, it's called Pat and Me. And well, that's Pat and that's Marlene, are the two people that are in the picture, and they're heading for Grandma's Beach. And just through the trees there, you go down to the water, there's an opening, and there's a beautiful little beach, and it's all just covered with rocks and everything like it is, and that's where we went, and that was the photograph I took as they were going under the trees. So she just called it Pat and Me.
On Salt Spring Island.
And that's on Salt Spring Island, yeah. So that was a good trip. This one I saw a photograph of. This is a home port, Michigan. I love lighthouses, and I just saw this picture, and I don't remember whether it was in a National Geographic or a photograph picture somewhere. And I decided that I wanted to do a line bleed and see if I could do it. So, and basically I worked on it. Actually, I had quite a compliment from an artist that did what do you call those paintings that they do. When we had the screen, silk screening. I had a silk screen artist that really was trying to get me interested in doing it because he really thought it was a great picture for doing.
Screening.
It would really come up really good. So yeah, Homeport, Michigan, Lake Michigan. This is before the seawall. There's no seawall. This picture was probably taken in the 50s sometime. And Marlene's dad took her out. There's a cave. There's a cave on the outside here. And at low tide, you could walk across and you could climb up and into the cave. Some kids went up and actually destroyed the tree. And so they made it illegal to go there after that. And then they built the seawall, so it was literally hard. You couldn't get off the seawall to walk in there. And the tree actually came back. It actually came back to life.
It's beautiful
And it's beautiful today.
Pauline Johnson wrote a lot of her poetry about the Native society there.
How did he take you up to the cave? In a rowboat or in his...
No, we walked.
You walked at low tide. You could walk.
Tide? Okay.
Yeah, because there was no seawall. You could go. You just walk. You walk right down onto the water and walk out at low tide. And this is the area where the SS Beaver ran aground. You know, trying to make it into Vancouver Harbor. Beach is Stormy. I did one with my sailing ship, and Mom did this one. We were doing a black and white. Everything was black and white. That's the only colors we were using. And this is Breakers Beach, and it's off the Tofino area somewhere. But we were also looking for the First Nations sign, and we couldn't find it for the longest time. And then all of a sudden we found this rock with this seagull painted on it. And it's grace and adaptability. Grace, the gracefulness of the bird, and the adaptability of the bird to be able to handle the stormy weather. Grace and adaptability is what it represents. But they don't really show it too much, so it was hard to find. But once Mom found it, you can see the seagulls in the back here, and then this is the seagull, the native First Nations, Haida, Queen Charlotte Island natives, and this is all off of that Tofino area, and it is just being an old sailor and being up there in the wintertime. This is exactly what it looks like in winter. It's stormy. There's no color whatsoever. And that's what it looks like. It's a rough place. And that's the end of the stories. You start with the lightest color and you do a 1/16 of an inch. You do a line straight across of one color. And you do it 4 times.
A ruler.
And using a ruler, and you go across and you do the line bleed. then you add a little yellow to it. You have yellow and you have your white start. So you're starting off with a pale yellow, and now you're adding one little dot of yellow each time, and then you do another 4 strokes. Then you add then you add another dot of the color, and you bleed it up. And then as you're bleeding it up, then you start adding a little pink. So then you can see that as it's coming up, it's getting yellow, and then all of a sudden it's going into pink. And then the pink is having blue added to it. So the pink has got blue adding to it. You can't see it yet, so the pink comes up, and all of a sudden the blue takes over. And then you finish it off, and then it gets dark blue like that. And of course, and then you have to do the same down here. So you can see that the blue ends up darker down here because it hasn't got the height up there. But in the reflection, it's darker down here. So you start adding the blue to the pink, and it keeps coming down and down and down and down. And each one is like a 1/16 of an inch with 4 strokes, and only 1 dot on the back end of the paintbrush gets added each time. And it takes hours and hours and hours. It probably takes you, well, it took me a long time, probably 3 weeks to do this, and a day to finish it. Because then you paint over top of it, right? That was about it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's called a line bleed. Nice.
Like this one has it
On the angle, see?
on the angle and goes out both sides. So you use the 1 drop of paint on both sides. Then you put in another drop of paint.
It's
Yeah.
quite particular.
Yeah, it is finicky.
Then you got your whole thing is all, your whole canvas. You mark your canvas like your skyline is 0. And then you work from there. You mark on both sides down so that you can put the ruler across so that your line bleed stays where you want it. So it's quite intricate to start with, and it takes hours and hours and hours to do. But Mom and I used to sit for 4 hours, and then we could hardly move. We'd say, "Well, gee, I think I'm thirsty. I think I'm hungry. We should." And we'd been sitting in the same position for 4 hours. It's very meditative. It's very meditative. It takes you away, and it takes you into your painting as well.
You always gotta have a glass of wine
Yeah,
to dip your paintbrush in.
Cheers to that. Thank you guys
Yeah.
for the lesson on line bleeding.
Yeah. When we used to give art lessons, we always used to pour the people wine, and inevitably everyone would dip their paintbrush in the wine instead of into the water.
Perfect.
But we're all still here.
You didn't poison yourself.
No poison.
That's our story, and we're sticking to it. Thank you all for coming.